Mixtape Stories, where science fiction, humor, the search for meaning, and Gen X nostalgia meet.
I was the one who caused it. I was the one who struck Mom. It was my elbow that busted her lip, and it was my complete meltdown that prompted her to literally run into Clyde's arms. I was the reason this all happened to her. What's worse was that Mom had to process the trauma of her middle-aged son barging into her house, assaulting her lover and her as well, only to face the kid version of her attacker a few hours later, who was not responsible for what had happened. How impossible it must have been to separate the deranged adult me from the innocent boy living under her roof. And she held that impossible encounter from me for the rest of her life. On the flight over to Oakland, I couldn't help but consider that if the burden of compartmentalizing this event caused her Lewy body dementia in the first place. Environmental conditions are a contributing factor after all, right? Was it possible that at the center of my mom's decline was my time traveling? The last words she spoke, "Which me am I?" echoed repeatedly as the plane approached for landing. The new VBK office in downtown Oakland was far more spacious than our old space in the financial district. But the real reason we moved to Oakland was to promote the city. For all of my own drama, here inside our new office, it was a celebration. Not only because the employees could finally stretch their arms without knocking over files, and not only because Jasmine guaranteed VBK's commitment to the city in a speech announcing our formal partnership with the school district, but also because after that announcement, Andre topped it off by proposing to her. Jasmine said yes. At this point, I would too, if he asked me. He really won me over. I plastered on a smile because this was Jasmine's moment to shine. She deserved it more than anyone here. I shook Andre's hand and winced. Not because I lost to him. I had come to embrace Andre as the one man who was worthy of her. It was because my right hand was swollen. My knuckles were badly bruised after the fight. I wasn't particularly adept at being a thug. After the party, Jasmine confronted me, pointing to my hand. I was going to make up a story, but she asked me to be honest, so I told her everything that had transpired.
Sugar, what possessed... Never mind. With everything you've been through, reliving her death, counting down the days till your father died and going through it all over again, it would be enough to drive anyone to the irrational. But my lord, Chris...
She wasn't angry. I've hardly ever seen her raise her voice. It was more like disappointment.
Clyde could press charges. Your mom could press charges.
Clyde doesn't know who I am over here. And Mom, she wouldn't give me up, even though I deserve it.
The point is that you put all of us at great risk. Do you realize that? It's not just about you and me anymore. We're trying to do something here, and you could throw all that away going off like that.
She was absolutely right. I didn't think about her or anyone else when I went all Charles Bronson on his ass.
You need to go home, Chris. You need to take some time to sort yourself out. Enjoy the money you'll have accumulated, because you can't go on like this, reliving these painful moments. It's just too much. No human was meant to do this, and I can't have you breaking down on me, putting our operation in jeopardy.
No! 2016? That's not my home. Not anymore. She sidled up next to me.
I'm not telling you not to return, just take some time off to get yourself right.
Come on, Chris. You know she's right. It's time for us to go. I told myself that this wasn't really goodbye. I would see her again one day. But I knew that this was an ending. I looked up to meet her eyes. I suppose I should return to refill my prescriptions and clear my voicemail with all those robots leaving me messages. Jasmine chuckled, recalling that time I tried to explain robocalls to her when we were at that Chinese restaurant in Fresno.
Be careful. I hear they're scamming people.
Well, it's a good thing I got an awesome lawyer. We stood there in the large conference room overlooking the Bay Bridge.
Hey, what's the date and location of your return, Shimmer? I'd love to greet you when you arrive.
My heart sank. I forced a grin. I'm not exactly sure with this new song I picked up, but I'll give you the date when I return.
I look forward to seeing you then.
So I guess I'll see you back then.
You always will.
We hugged, and I headed back down and onto the street. Once I found a deserted loading dock, I loaded Eyes to the Wind into the Shimmer Pro playlist and pressed Shimmer.
Have you fixed your eyes to the wind? Will you let it pull you in again on the way back in?
As the shimmering dissipated, vehicles took shape. I emerged in a parking lot. Again, something about parking lots. This one was in front of an office park. I recognized the low-rise building, Trollster. I played the Lost in the Dream album a lot on Conway's Spotify on my way to and from work in the days leading up to me shimmering out. The memory seemed so distant now. I turned off the phone's airplane mode and acquired Trollster's Wi-Fi. The date and time appeared. March 31st, 2016. I was only 1 day shy of my original Shimmer Out date. People I remembered knowing, but whose names I had long since forgotten, acknowledged me as I passed by. Contemporaneous me was getting into his beat-up Camry, heading back to that little apartment I used to live in to prep for the deep shimmer tomorrow. In the distance, I saw a tall, distinguished-looking gentleman walking towards me.
"Welcome back,"
said Andre. He was 31 years older than the version I was with an hour ago, but he still looked great. I guess Jasmine finally told you about me. Her absence here brought up the fact that Jasmine was no longer alive to meet me. About Jasmine, I'm so sorry for your loss.
"It's okay, Chris. I've had time to heal."
You have to understand, Andre. She didn't want me to tell her about her future. I was going to, but she told me to never tell her. But maybe I should have.
Hey, it's not your job to go and save everyone. She never expected that. I had 14 wonderful years with Jasmine, and we had a daughter who's blessed with her looks and brains.
A daughter?
Her name's Ella.
Wow. How did I not catch any of this in my research on her? Andre shrugged.
Who knows? Perhaps you changed history and led me to Jasmine, or perhaps you just glossed it over in your research.
I was about to defend my research skills when Andre added,
"Turn off your phone."
I gave him a quizzical look.
Your contemporary has the same exact phone, and your carrier is having trouble deciding where to provide service. Unless you recalled having some service issues, I'd turn it off.
I did as he instructed, and we headed towards the guest parking lot. I suppose I can't return to my apartment until tomorrow night either.
No, but I'll take you to your house in Austin.
I have a house?
You've owned it for 20 years.
Wait, I've owned a house in Austin this entire time? Why didn't I just... Then I answered my own question. Yeah, I know, causality. It's just... I really hated living in that tiny unit in Pflugerville. But I supposed it was the thing that spurred me in the first place. Sorry, Andre. Just some shimmer problems. Andre smiled and led me to a sedan. It was a rental. From Terminal Rental Car, no less. When we got in, I was blown away by the futuristic interior design, with the touchscreen controls and LED mood lighting. Andre pulled out onto the street, his phone's GPS telling him where to go like he was a local. How many times I wish I had that app back then.
Do you have any ID in your real name?
Yeah, I sewed it into the lining of my backpack.
Good. You'll need it. Tomorrow, we fly to Oakland, where we'll sign over the paperwork.
What paperwork?
I'm Christian Vaughn's attorney, and he left his entire estate to his bastard son, Chris Lamb. A trust I managed for years as executor, until it matures tomorrow.
So I'm my own bastard son. Ew, but okay. By the way, how did you know I'd arrive here today?
You'll tell me when you hire me as your attorney.
Oh, right.
I know this must be very disorienting, but cheer up. You're going to become a billionaire tomorrow.
A billionaire? It was a number I just couldn't grasp. Back when I was planning this whole crazy thing out, I was thinking in terms of millions, not billions. This was supposed to be a moment where I'd let out a howl of victory. Instead, I slumped in a seat, numb, gazing at the bustling Austin skyline. We parked in the driveway of a ranch-style home in Barton Hills, and Andre led me inside. A Samsung LED TV hung from the wall, showing the date and time over a high-resolution image of Nagel's Woman in Shades. Andre gave me the Wi-Fi password and keys to the house.
I'll pick you up tomorrow at 5 a.m. sharp.
Before getting into the car, he popped up.
And once again, welcome home.
After he left, I dropped my backpack onto the couch and sat next to it in silence. So, this is home. The following morning, Andre picked me up and drove us to the Austin Bergstrom International Airport, which replaced the old Robert Mueller Municipal Airport, where I was welcomed back to the 21st century with your standard strip search and anal probes through TSA security. Fortunately, there was no need to hide my iPhone and laptop in some casing. After we landed in Oakland, Andre and I went straight to the trust company, where I signed a bunch of paperwork to accept the estate of Christian Vaughn, whose accounts had been accruing compound interest for decades. Everyone in the room was wearing business attire except me. I was in the same members-only jacket and Guess jeans I wore yesterday in 1985, and lugging a backpack like a vagabond. When all was said and done, Andre shook my hand.
Congratulations, Mr. Lamb.
I gawked at the ledger, showing my staggering wealth. It was obscene. When I shimmered out, I pinned my hopes on this moment and often thought how thrilled I would be. But I wasn't. I didn't feel anything. At 8:01 p.m. Central Daylight Time, when contemporaneous me shimmered out from the parking lot of his apartment complex in Austin, Texas, I became, for the first time in 4 years, give or take, contemporaneous me again. I was no longer living under an alias, and I was no longer a traveler out of time. I was Chris Lamb once again.
Wow, Chris, That's an incredible story.
I was sitting in the kitchen with Heidi at her house in uptown New Orleans. This morning I showed up at her doorstep with a PJ's wedding cake almond milk chai latte for her. And she noticed the brand new Lexus in the driveway. She asked about the new car and I said, "Funny you should ask." An hour later, Heidi was making lunch for the kids and listening to my tales of a shimmering app that allowed me to travel back to 1976, where I assumed the identity of Christian Vaughn and funded the PC revolution. Many of Mom's knickknacks lie around the kitchen. A cobalt glass vase on the table, some iron pans, Mom's tan corduroy jacket with the All One People button encased in a collector's frame hung by the kitchen entrance. Look, I understand your skepticism, Heidi. It's okay if you don't believe me. And it was. I really didn't care if Heidi thought I was crazy or not. I was just happy to see her. She was family. What was left of it, anyway. The point is, Heidi, you've done so much for Mom, for me, and I owe you so much.
What are you talking about? You don't owe me anything.
I do, Heidi. And along the way, with all my shimmering, gambling, and investing, I accrued some money as Christian Vaughn. Well, a lot, actually.
A lot? Like how much?
I'm kind of a billionaire now. Heidi stopped spreading the mayo on the sandwiches.
Kind of a billionaire?
Well, a billionaire. But like in the low billions. Not like Jeff Bezos or anything.
Oh, come on, Chris.
I pulled out my laptop and accessed an account I opened for her and swiveled it around for her to see. Next week, you're going to be receiving notice that your house is paid off. You own this free and clear now. And this account here, that is yours. I also set up a trust fund for Allison Franklin's college. If you'd like to keep your job as Dean of Communications over at Loyola, that's great. If you want to move to the Amalfi Coast and learn Italian, that's cool too. Whatever you want to do, I'll take care of it. Heidi's almond-shaped eyes registered shock, looking at the balance of a bank account in her name that was in the tune of $1 million.
Chris, sweet brother, please be honest with me. Did you do anything illegal?
Well, I did assume a dead person's identity. That couldn't possibly be legal. I guess you could also say I engaged in some minor temporal money laundering activities for my gambling wins, and there was a lot of structuring, but I'm sure the statute of limitations had...
I'm serious. Did you hack into Trollster and take their money?
What? No, it's completely legit. I didn't steal it, Heidi. I swear. I inherited it.
Inherited it? From who?
From Christian Vaughn.
But you just said that you were Chris Vaughn.
I was. I set up a trust fund as Christian Vaughn for my bastard son, Chris Lamb.
Wait, so you are your own father?
Yeah, I know.
Ew.
Speaking of Trollster, I got fired. I simply forgot to show up on work on Monday and attend that meeting with those consultants, Bill and George. I got a call from my supervisor, Daryl, saying that he had no choice but to terminate me, which was fine. I purchased Trollster the following month to include all the patents that allowed Trollster to gather incriminating information on people using social media. And I promptly dissolved the company before Conway Energy could get their product. But I wasn't a dick about it. I provided a generous severance package to every Trollster employee, which would give them 6 months to find other jobs. Their grand total for this was a few million, all of which I'd eat, but I was fine with it, if it meant stopping that technology from getting out. I suppose when you become a billionaire, you're supposed to move to Malibu and buy a Maserati or something. But that just seems so cliché. I didn't see the point. Don't get me wrong. I did move out of that one-bedroom apartment in Pflugerville and into the house in Barton Hills. And I traded my old Camry for the Lexus. It wasn't anything too ostentatious, but it had a proximity key, Bluetooth, satellite radio, and a backup camera. There were things I enjoyed about returning home, like being able to purchase sushi at a gas station and buying gluten-free bread. I had instant access to all the information I could want in the palm of my hands. I had an app telling me where the closest coffee house was, exactly where to turn, and it asked me what I thought about the coffee. And yes, the coffee was that good. I tried to convince myself that my shimmering was a resounding success, that this was the thing I had worked for, and that I should start living my life now. But it just didn't work that way. What I did to Mom, how could I enjoy any of this, knowing what I did? I'd often dream about her. Sometimes I'd wake up and think I was in 1985, sometimes 1976. Some part of me expected Jasmine to call to tell me we'd be laying down T1 cables for another school, only to find my iPhone pinging the so-called highlights of the latest presidential primary debate. I remembered telling Jasmine about another presidential primary. That's how my mind worked. Almost everything I did, everywhere I went, everything I heard reminded me of the people I failed. I was driving down Mopac, listening to satellite radio tuned to an 80s station. I made a rule since returning not to listen to period music, but I've been known to break my own rules. The memories emerged of that moment, not too long ago, of me sitting with Jasmine in that airport. She was gone now. She died several years ago. I pulled over and broke down. This was no good. Me ugly crying to Phil Collins on the side of Mopac during rush hour. I needed to accept that I belonged here in the 21. I swore that I wouldn't shimmer again to complete the causality loop until I put some emotional distance between myself and the past. Because the last time I failed to keep that distance resulted in Mom's demise. So, I spent more time with the family I had, Heidi, Alice, and Franklin. I'd come over to New Orleans and visit them, but more often, I'd have them come over and stay with me in Austin. I took Alice and Franklin off Heidi's hands a lot during the summer, and got to learn what the kids thought was cool now and what was sus. I expected the disorientation of my return to fade, and to a certain extent it did. But the world I returned to, it was 2016. What is there more to say? After spending a couple of months decompressing, I turned my attention back to the outside world, and I did not like what I was seeing.
Guys like that, when they were in a place like this, they'd be carried out on a stretcher, folks. That's true. Smiling, laughing, like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you. If you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of them, would you? Seriously. Okay? Just knock the hell.
After the election, shit got downright Orwellian, with the administration openly promoting alternative facts and talking about there being good white supremacists who marched with tiki torches in Charlottesville. I briefly wondered if I somehow returned to some dystopian alternate reality, that I did something in the past to cause this. But this wasn't an alternate reality. I just hadn't been paying attention until now. I reconnected with Andre and we got to talking about things. The Bartels Foundation was still operating, funding computers and teaching positions for kids in underserved areas throughout the country now. Kids who showed talent for computers were provided with a paid internship to various companies throughout the Bay Area. I became a major contributor to the Bartels Foundation, but I wasn't satisfied with just donating. I started working there. That's where I was introduced to a young man named Jaresh. He and a bunch of other alumni from the Bartels Foundation had started something, a project in their spare time where they tried to counter bots coursing through the social media sphere. They were able to identify the source and means of the various bots, and even began to forecast fake news stories before they hit the social media accounts. It was impressive. Granted, some of what they did was borderline, some called it hacking, whatever. The point is, they had something going. Jaresh wanted to turn what he and his colleagues were doing into a full-time gig. As of right now, he was an underpaid data administrator subcontracted at Conway Amazon. Jaresh and his crew and I met on the weekends to launch True, the bot-killing operation that identified, disrupted, and countered malicious bots and predicted incoming conspiracies. I was over at Heidi's again. We were washing dishes and I was going on about True and how brilliant these kids were. On Heidi's morning playlist was Janelle Monáe, who I heard a lot recently over at True. While scrubbing dishes, I mentioned hiring some top-notch legal talent that Chris Vaughn worked with back in the day. She nodded and let me meander on True's mission. When there was a lull, Heidi turned to me.
So, did you see Mom and Dad?
It took me a second to understand the sudden change in topic. It had been 2 years since I returned to the 21st century, and Heidi never once brought up the matter after I told her about me becoming Chris Vaughn. Part of me wanted to tell her I did a lot more than just run into him. But aloud I said, yeah, I did in fact. What convinced you?
You? Ever since you told me that story, you've been different. If I didn't know better, I would have thought
That I've been possessed?
that you've grown up.
Well, I guess better late than never.
What was it like seeing them?
They were young. We all were. Oh, and you were so adorable, Heidi. Remember how we went to Bennigan's on Fridays? They'd hand us quarters for the jukebox
And you always put on that song, Slow Hand, just to annoy me.
I want a man with a slow hand. Oh, yeah. I even got to witness me being that annoying little brother to you.
You were there at Bennigan's?
I nodded. I didn't want to be a creep, but we were such a happy family. At least, that's what I told myself. And I wanted to be part of it again.
So you didn't spend your whole time in Silicon Valley?
No, I shimmered up in increments, and I always emerged in front of our house.
The one on Ostrich?
Yeah, it's where I formed most of the musical nostalgic resonance, what with Mom playing all the music that she did. You know, when I first shimmered in to Welcome Back, I had to take the city bus to the Pelican Breeze Motel. I stayed there on several shimmers. But as soon as Apple went IPO, I went ahead and I stopped mid-sentence, realizing I had just had the most epic brain fart in my life. Holy shit! Heidi, I own a house on Emu Street.
What?
Yeah, I bought a house on Emu Street right after Apple went IPO. It was my safe house whenever I shimmered. I think I might still own it.
So you might own a house that you just forgot about. Geez, talk about first world problems.
I didn't forget about the emu house, not exactly. I just failed to think fourth dimensionally. Shimmer problems, am I right? The safe house registered as part of my past. Emu Street was spared the Katrina flooding entirely. The original home still existed to include my own. However, I wasn't certain I still actually owned it. The key under the gnome's hat was still there, so I took a chance. It opened. Inside the living room was a digital clock on the wall, along with the same woman in shades nagel print. The house looked just the way I remembered it. The same TV and VHS player in the living room, as well as the couch. In the vinyl collection, I pulled out an old Smiths LP, which had a sticky note that said, "Thanks for the tunes, Mr. V." That was Kat's handwriting. I half expected her to barge into the house, take my food, put her dirty Converse shoes on my coffee table, and use my PC to cheat at adventure. But she was in her 50s now, wherever she was these days. Andre's law firm took care of most of my holdings, and I just signed papers. This house was among them, and I just lost it in the shuffle. The house wasn't dusty, which meant I apparently paid for a cleaning service as well, which also meant that I really needed to take a closer look at my books. In the main bedroom was a landline phone with the same old Cobra cassette answering machine. The light was blinking wildly. When I pressed the button to play the messages, the cassette rewound for a couple of minutes.
Greetings, Mr. Vaughn. It's Deborah, and it's November 22nd in the year of our Lord, 1989.
I sat beside it and
Billy
listened to
Joel
the
just
messages
released an
from a
album
generation
called
ago.
We Did Not
Most
Start
of them
the
were
Fire.
from Deborah at VBK, and she always crowned the date with
However, I
"In
do
the Year of
believe
our
that,
Lord."
in fact,
I
there
jotted
was
down
a
dates that
fire,
I'm
and
supposed
it's
to
possible
return
that
to.
they did
A
start.
term sheet signing, Jasmine's wedding, Ella's
There's
first
also
birthday party,
another
things like
song
that.
by
I dozed
Madonna,
off
I
at some
believe.
point when the next message played.
Lamb, honey, it's Donna.
I stirred suddenly. Nobody ever used my real name on this line. Not Jasmine, not even my mom. She would call me Christian Vaughn, even though there was a lot of tongue-in-cheek in her tone. The message continued.
It's all gone to shit. They found me. The whole operation is scrapped. I'm so sorry, but oh, for shit's sake. I don't know if you even know what I'm talking about yet. Shimmer problems, am I right? Look, we gotta start over again. Again. Rendezvous with me at the place where you met the temperamental. The when is June 17th, 1994.
I could hear sirens wailing in the distance.
I can't go to you, my lamb. Please shimmer to me. You have to. The fate of the world depends on us.
She hung up. What the? I rewounded and played it again. And again. Donna? Who in the hell is Donna? Whoever she was, she knew about the Shimmer app. That much was certain. But how? And who is the they that found her? What operation was she talking about?
We gotta start over.
I played it again just to be sure that I heard that right.
Rendezvous with me at the place where you met the temperamental. The when is June 17th, 1994.
Donna wanted me to shimmer to her where I met that temperamental. As in the temperamental Simpson? That would place me at TNA Sports in Fresno with the oil wrestling. According to the answering machine, she left the message for me on July 17th, 1996. Yet she wants me to rendezvous with her before she even left the message to June 17th, 1994. I believe the So You Want a Shimmer guide would clearly be against this. I mean, talk about adding dark energy, right? I played through the rest of the messages, hoping that Donna left another voicemail, but no luck. The tape ended in 1999. All of the remaining messages were from telemarketers selling Y2K insurance. Are you prepared for the rapture? Y2K is coming up, and we all know. I opened the safe looking for clues. There were stacks of cash, roughly $2 or $3 million worth, along with various Christian Vaughn driver's licenses and credit cards from various time periods. The main bedroom itself was sparse, but well kept. I found the photo album by the bedside table and flipped through the photographs. Most were from the early 80s, back when I was stalking my family. There were pictures of Jasmine and Andre at their wedding. My God, she looked stunning. And then one of Jasmine and Andre with a baby. I turned the page, and there I found a photo of a woman with short black hair and a mischievous grin, shooting the bird, but with her palm facing out. I plucked it out of the backing and found a handwritten message. Happy New Year's, my lamb. The photograph seemed anachronistic somehow. I couldn't say why. Someone in the background wore celebratory eyeglasses shaped 1995, probably because it was New Year's 1995. But the hoodie the woman wore appeared to be more contemporary. One of those Lululemon gigs with a thumb hole, something I started seeing recently. I guess that was her, Donna. Okay, so there's this lady who used my app who wants me to rendezvous with her from 2 years before she left the message because, quote, everything went to shit and they found out about her. It sounded like a huge mess. More to the point, it sounded like somebody else's problem. I had a causality loop to complete. I hadn't even started on that stupid novel that nobody except Kat liked. And I needed to get it published before I could do that interview with Omni. And I was going to have to reunite with Jasmine someday. Watch her get married, have a daughter, all the while knowing that she was going to die in a car crash in 1998. So there was that joy to look forward to. This lady's personal drama? That was her problem, not mine. Yeah, I know. Donna said that the fate of the world depended on us. Oh, come on. Just because some cute rando lady says that the fate of the world depended on us. You know you're going, right? After grabbing a few things to include my laptop from my car and stuffing it in the old backpack I found in the closet, I pulled out my iPhone. Because whether I was ready or not, it was time to get my shimmer on. Looks like I chose the wrong week to throw away my flannel.
Mixtape Stories hopes you enjoyed this podcast. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. You can find out more about us on our website, mixtapestories.net. Coming in September, Book 2 of Smells Like Time Travel, a 4-episode series entitled, I Got Time Travel in My Pocket. And for August, Mixtape Stories will scare up something for you. The role of Jasmine was played by Ebony LaShawn, and Andre was played by Anthony W., both on Fiverr. Heidi was played by Unleashed Fox. In this episode, you heard the following pop songs: Eddie Grant, Electric Avenue; The War on Drugs, Eyes to the Wind; Beyonce, Drunk in Love; The National, I Need My Girl; Phil Collins, Against All Odds; Janelle Monáe, Crazy Classic Life; and Nirvana, Come As You Are.